This podcast is brought to you by Ninten-Dos and Don'ts, where it's all things Nintendo all the time. Visit Ninten-Dos-and-Don'ts.com for Nintendo news, Nintendo reviews, and all of your gaming needs. Welcome into the first episode of Ninten-Dos and Don'ts Undocked podcast, the show where we talk games, movies, comics, and more. I am your host, Alex Dwyer, and it has been brought to my attention that some people still have yet to see Avengers Infinity War. Where have you been? Maybe the first Avengers movie was enough for a while, but that was 6 years ago. From the Avengers to Infinity War, there are 12 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in between. I'm here to get you all caught up in as few films as possible. Here are the essential, not the best, MCU movies before seeing Avengers Infinity War. I'm going to try and make this as spoiler-free as possible because obviously I'm making this so that way you can watch these films in order leading to Infinity War. So we're going to start off with Captain America, the First Avenger. I feel that this really establishes the super in superhero. It really shows how good of a person Steve Rogers is, what it takes to be a superhero. And it also brings in the Space Stone, which in the Infinity War, the Infinity Stones are kind of a big deal. So that's going to be a big focus of these films, is the Infinity Stones. And it introduces the Red Skull, who's an awesome character played by Hugo Weaving. I think that the first Avenger is truly the most important of the individual hero films of Phase 1, that being over Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor. The first Avenger brings Captain America into modern day, which is kind of important. And some of the events with him and Howard Stark are really kind of referenced all throughout the MCU. I really feel that this film is truly important. Moving right along in Phase 1, we have the Avengers. That's a place where a lot of people started. And it brings everyone together. Obviously, it's the Avengers. We have Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, Loki, and Hawkeye. And I think this is a really good place to start. Had Captain America not really established what the Tesseract does, I think that the Avengers would be the best place to start. But, so again, we have the Space Stone and the Tesseract. We have the Battle of New York, which is talked about all throughout the MCU. Even through Infinity War, the Battle of New York is referenced time and time again throughout this entire franchise. It establishes the dynamic of the group. We get Bruce Banner back, and I think it would be confusing if people saw the Incredible Hulk and then in Infinity War now, since it was Edward Norton and now it's Mark Ruffalo. I can get into that in another podcast because I have some feelings on that. But we also get the Steve Rogers and Tony Stark rivalry, which is important. That becomes such an integral part of this entire series because those are two head honchos that try and create a unified group. And it's such an interesting and fun dynamic that they have. So we've made it through Phase 1, and I hate to do this. I really do. Thor: The Dark World is, in my opinion, an essential MCU movie, even if it's, in my opinion, the worst of the MCU movies. We really get a sense of Loki, god of mischief, and the character development of both Thor and Loki are so important in this movie. We get the Reality Stone, so that's why it's really important in this, because the Infinity Stones. So we're up to 2 of the Infinity Stones now. We get the death of Thor's mother, which plays into more of his character building as well, and then the end cutscene brings us into our next movie on this list, Guardians of the Galaxy. So with Guardians of the Galaxy, for a lot of people, this is their favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And I have to agree that it's one of my absolute favorite Marvel movies, if not one of my favorite movies of all time. So I have some bias when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy. We get the Power Stone. So we're up to 3 of the 6 Infinity Stones now. The end cutscene of Thor Dark World ties directly into it, like I said, so I'm not going to spoil any of that, but when I went back to watch Thor the Dark World and saw that cutscene, I freaked out. It was awesome. So obviously we get a new crew in the Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the first time we haven't had the Avengers. So we get Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket Raccoon, Drax the Destroyer, and Groot introduced into this. And we get a teaser of Thanos. And the ties to Thanos are so great with the Guardians of the Galaxy, with Gamora and Nebula, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are, the more I think about it, so integral to this entire story arc. And it's so funny because they're so much different than every other movie, but they also set this idea of humor, a little more humor than usual, and that kind of ties over. I really love Guardians of the Galaxy, and I could talk about them for forever. So, getting off of my Guardians of the Galaxy high, we're going into Avengers Age of Ultron, and a lot of people really don't like Age of Ultron, but I think that's when comparing it to the first. If you're gonna compare it to the first, yeah, it's probably not as good, but isn't that the case with almost any sequel? So, it's important though. We get the Mind Stone. We're up to 4 of the 6 Infinity Stones. We get Scarlet Witch and the Vision. We get more Bruce Banner and Tony Stark building. We get just so much is in Age of Ultron in hindsight that I really had to put this as an essential Marvel film. So obviously the Vision's important. He's with the crew for the rest of the films going into Infinity War. Scarlet Witch is such an important part of this too. So those 2 characters alone, I feel, bring this into one of the more essential Marvel movies. You get more of the Hulk, like I said before, and Bruce Banner, and some of the reasons behind why he's doing what he's doing, and just team strengthening. The strength of the Avengers at the beginning of this movie is so great and so cool. Just the dynamic that they have now is awesome. And I think that's what really makes Age of Ultron such an essential movie. Moving into Phase 3, we have Captain America Civil War. I have a lot of problems with Captain America Civil War, but we're not going to talk about that either. So we get Spider-Man, which was at the time huge. People that might be new to the MCU or joined around the time of Infinity War may think, oh, Spider-Man's already in here. But that was a huge deal for Spider-Man to be brought in from Sony. We get some of the division in the group with Civil War, obviously being called Civil War. Black Panther's introduced. We get to see more of Bucky's importance to Cap and Bucky's placement in Infinity War. You get to see Ant-Man and Giant Man, which is also a pretty important part of the story arc as a whole. Maybe not Infinity War, which is why I've decided not to put Ant-Man in here, because he has no relevance to Infinity War. So I really like Civil War as a movie. Maybe not as a comic book movie, but some of the fight scenes in here are some of the best in the MCU. The dynamic with everyone's awesome. And this is such an integral building piece going forward in the MCU. So I really debated on whether or not I should include this one, but then I remembered that my whole premise of this was to include the Infinity Stones, and Doctor Strange is a holder of the Time Stone. So we're now up to 5 Infinity Stones, and he becomes such an important part of Infinity War that it's important to see what Doctor Strange can do, where his powers come from, where he comes from, how he kind of plays into some of the other characters' worlds, because he's such an out there character where you kind of wonder, well, how does he kind of fit into this whole thing? But we get to see magic for the first time. Truly magic instead of, something given to you by a potion or an elixir or something like that. Doctor Strange really brings something different to the table. And the battle scene in the end could kind of lead to some more of the integral pieces of Infinity War. So I truly believe that Doctor Strange is such an important character in this. I wanted to set some of my bias around because Doctor Strange is my favorite Marvel superhero. But you can't deny that this movie is truly one of the most essential leading into Infinity War. And it's awesome. It's a blast. It's different than the rest. It has a little bit of some crazy, zany camera work, really cool score, just some things we haven't seen before in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think Doctor Strange is awesome. Barring the clarinet that you're probably hearing in the background. That's what you get when you're recording in the basement of the School of Music building. But we're moving on to a surprise. A really surprising Marvel movie. When it came out, I actually didn't see it in the theaters. Thor Ragnarok. And it's pretty important. We get Hulk. We get probably the closest thing we'll ever get to a Planet Hulk movie. R.I.P. That's such a cool story arc that we will never be able to get. But we get part of it at least in Thor Ragnarok, so that's kind of awesome. But as is the case with all of these movies, it's more character building. It's really building into Infinity War. We don't get any Infinity Stones in this one. We are at 5, so that means there's one more left, and that'll come into play in Infinity War. But the end of Thor Ragnarok goes straight into Infinity War. And so I was a little bit confused when I saw Infinity War and was like, well, how did Thor and the crew get here? So there was a little bit of that. That's not the reason I would say that Thor Ragnarok is essential, is just to see the end. I think this whole thing is really building Thor's power, building this world even further than we've already seen, and just showing more of the Bifrost, showing how powerful everyone is, that there really is something bigger coming. And Thor Ragnarok is just, it's great. I really didn't like it that much the first time I saw it, but the second time, yeah, Thor Ragnarok's a lot of fun. It adds a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of humor to it, which kind of threw me for a loop considering how dark Thor, the Dark World, was. It's just a different tone for Thor, and I think that's okay. And it just caught me off guard. And like I said before, I like Thor Ragnarok a lot more now, and I think it's a good time. So that'll do it for my essential Marvel Cinematic Universe movies leading into Infinity War. Now, there's some honorable mentions that are really good Marvel movies, like Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, my personal favorite of the MCU movies. So, there's that. Hot take, Guardians 2 is better than Guardians 1. Sorry, it's true. No, but this is a list that I've thought long and hard about. I watched every single Marvel Universe movie from Iron Man all the way to Infinity War to really check myself and see if this is what I thought, and it is. I really feel that if you watch these 8 or so movies, you will be all caught up for Infinity War and not feel like you truly missed something. So this is a gaming network. We do a lot of video games here. I like video games, and so this is a section I want to call the Newsroom. So I've picked 3 articles to kind of talk about a little bit to close out the show. Things that are new with Nintendo, because that's the focus, Ninten-Dos and Don'ts. So a couple of the articles that I thought were interesting, one's from Forbes, and is Oculus Quest really competing with Nintendo Switch? According to GamingBolt.com, Oculus executive says the Nintendo Switch will be a primary competitor for the Oculus Quest. Now, Oculus is a VR system, and the Nintendo Switch is just, a handheld portable console. And I don't see how this is really going to be a competitor for the Switch. Yeah, Oculus is a portable VR, but it's like comparing apples and oranges. Now, Sony dropped out of the portable race. The Vita is officially dead. Sony says they're not going to be in the handheld market, but again, that's such a close competitor to the Switch. Oculus Quest, I feel like, is such a niche market. VR is such a niche market that it really doesn't feel like it's going to be in any competition with the Switch. The Switch isn't in any danger by it, and I don't feel like the Oculus Quest is going to be in any danger by it. The next one I have is Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn will work on all 3DS systems, Nintendo confirms. I think that's actually a really cool thing. There's only a handful of games that I ever saw for new 3DS or 2DS only. The only one I can think of off the top of my head actually is Xenoblade Chronicles. So if there's any other ones, I don't really know about them. Kirby's Epic Yarn was a Wii game that was a lot of fun, and I was really surprised to see Nintendo announce it actually at the Direct. It's a fun Kirby game. It's not really the Kirby game that anyone asked for, but we have it. And it's a really good one. If you didn't play it on the Wii, then pick it up on the 3DS, because there's still a market for the 3DS. Nintendo is still supporting it. They're still putting out new games like the Luigi's Mansion remaster for it. So, hey, if you want the 3DS around, buy the games for it. And Kirby's Epic Yarn is such a good addition to the 3DS. And last but not least, Crossplay has officially come to the PS4. Sony caved. We are getting crossplay for just Fortnite as of right now, but that's the big game on the market. That's what everyone's playing. You can't go anywhere without hearing something about Fortnite. I'm not a big fan of Fortnite, but I appreciate it for what it's done. It's really brought the gaming community together to some extent. It's caused a division too, but everyone's playing it. It's the new big thing, and I respect it for that. That being said, crossplay on PS4 now is huge. Everyone can crossplay. If someone has a Switch, they can play with their PS4 friends. They can play with their Xbox One friends. It's awesome. And this is what gaming is all about, is that pick the system you want, but we can all play together. And hopefully we'll get Rocket League on there, because that's going to be insane if we get Rocket League. I'm so excited for Sony to announce that Rocket League's coming. But this is a huge step for the gaming community, and I'm looking very forward to seeing where we go, seeing how it works, because Sony had said that their infrastructure's not the same, or that it's better. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Sony was being Sony about it, and really did not want their systems to be on the same as Nintendo's and Xbox's. But we're here now. Sony has caved. Fortnite is going to be officially crossplay on everything. And I think that's a testament to Epic Games. It's a testament to Fortnite, how big of a game it is that everyone wants to play Fortnite together. And I can't deny that it's taken over. It's a surprise. When I first, heard about Fortnite and started playing it, I didn't like it, but it's caught on, it's a thing, and it looks like it's here to stay. Fortnite has shown no signs of going anywhere. So, if you're not a fan, sorry, Fortnite's here and it's dominating our market. It's a free-to-play game. People are going to download it just because it's free. I downloaded it just because it's free. And again, that's just a testament to what Epic Games has created. They've created this empire from a free-to-play game. So it's awesome. Anyway, that'll wrap up the newsroom, and that'll wrap up our podcast for today. Again, this is the Undocked Podcast, episode number 1. I'm your host, Alex Dwyer. Visit Ninten-Dos for all your Nintendo news, Nintendo reviews, and all your gaming needs. We'll see you next week.